Hello, children of abiding love, and everyone else who may be in your circle in your home right now. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. We're going to tell the stories of the faces of Easter that follow the ones that Miss Nicole told the other day. This will be the stories 4, 5, and 6. And then there's one more that we'll hopefully do next week. I'm glad you're here. Here's the story materials for today. Are you ready? In the beginning, the baby was born, and the Word became a wordless child. And when the baby looked up at the mother Mary and the father Joseph, he could already see a cross in their faces. And the mother Mary and father Joseph took such good care of the baby, and he grew. And they loved him and nurtured him, and he grew to be a boy. When he was about 12, he went with them to the Feast of the High Holy Days in Jerusalem. And when they were on their way home, suddenly Mary and Joseph realized that Jesus was not with them. And they looked and searched for him for 3 days and finally found him in the temple talking with the rabbis. And they were listening to him because he was so wise and knew so much. And he was listening to them because he wanted to learn more. And then you remember that when Jesus was about 30, he went to the river Jordan and saw his cousin John, who was baptizing people, and Jesus asked him to baptize him. And when John looked at Jesus, he suddenly saw that he was the Messiah and said, "You must baptize me." And Jesus said, "No, it's written that you will prepare the way and baptize me." And when John baptized Jesus, people saw a dove come down from the heavens and heard a voice say, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Jesus went back across the river Jordan into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights. Jesus went into the desert to discover more about who he really was and what his work was going to be. He stayed there for 40 days and 40 nights, and there was little to eat or drink. One day he heard a voice, and it said, "See those stones over there? Why don't you turn one of them into bread to have something to eat?" And Jesus said, "No. To be a real human being, we need more than just bread to eat." And then suddenly it was as if Jesus were on top of the temple in Jerusalem, and the voice came back and it said, "If you are really the Son of God, why don't you just jump and see if God sends the angels to catch you before you hit the stones below?" And Jesus said, "No, we do not need to test God." And then Jesus could see all the kingdoms of the world. And the voice came back and it said, "If you will follow me, I will make you king over all of these kingdoms." And Jesus said, "I am to be a king, but not that kind of king." And then the voice went away. Jesus went back across the river Jordan and began to do his work. But what was his work? If you want, you can pause the video to see if there's something you have in your home that you would like to bring to tell more about this part of the story. I actually have something that I found which reminds me of the desert. It's a cactus plant because Jesus spent 40 days and 40 nights in the desert discovering more about who he was and what his work was going to be. So, what was Jesus' work? Jesus' work was to come close to people, especially people that no one else wanted to come close to. See, here he is coming very close to this blind man. He is so close that he is touching his eyes, the blind man's eyes. When people came close to Jesus, they changed. They could see things they could never see before. They could do things they could never do before. They became well. Jesus also told parables. Finally, he realized that he had to become a parable, and so he turned to Jerusalem for the last time. Now, you could probably find something in your home, in your or in the room where you are now, to remind you of this part of the story or to tell it a little bit more. I remembered one of the little bags I carry to try to give to homeless people when I see them, because sometimes it's hard to be around people who are homeless. And Jesus loved the people and was with the people that other people didn't want to be with. So when Jesus went to Jerusalem for the last time with the 12, it was the time of the Passover, and the city was full of people from many lands. The people thought that Jesus was coming to be king, but they weren't paying attention. Jesus came into the city and he wasn't riding on a great white horse, and he wasn't being carried by soldiers. He was riding on a donkey, and it wasn't even his. He had to borrow it. But the people that Sunday when Jesus came into Jerusalem waved palm branches anyway. They were the sign of kings. On Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, Jesus went into the temple to teach. Every night, he went with the 12 back to the Mount of Olives. And the people watched him and whispered, "The Mount of Olives is supposed to be where the angels come down to drive away the Roman soldiers." One day when Jesus was teaching in the temple, he said, "Do you see that old woman over there? She's about to put something in the money box. Listen, did you hear anything?" No, the coin that she put in was the smallest coin there is, but that was all the money she had. And now, here comes a rich man. He has so much money to put in the money box that he needs help to carry it. And his money makes a loud clanging and ringing sound when they pour it into the money box. I wonder which one really gave the most. Some said the rich man, and some said the old woman. The temple guard said, "On Thursday we'll take him." But on Thursday they could not find him. In the evening of Thursday, Jesus and the 12 hurried through the dark streets of the city to a house. They climbed up the stairs to an upper room where they shared their last meal. When they had all eaten everything they wanted to eat, Jesus took some bread and gave thanks to God for it, and he broke it and said something like this: "Whenever you break the bread and share it like this, I will be there." He also took a cup of wine and said, after he thanked God for it, "Whenever you share the wine like this, I will be there." What was he talking about? He was always saying things like that, and they couldn't know. Still, they did not forget, and later they would understand. Suddenly, Judas got up and left, and then the rest sang a hymn and went out to the Garden of Gethsemane on the Mount of Olives. Jesus wanted to pray. When he was finished, he went to join the 12. And then suddenly Judas came out of the shadows and greeted him. That was the sign for the Roman guards, the temple guards, to take Jesus away. And they came out of the shadows too and took him away into the night. And then the 12 also disappeared into the darkness. Now you might find something to remind you or help tell more of this part of the story. The thing that I found in my garden was a palm leaf to remember that when Jesus came into Jerusalem for the last time, they waved palm leaves at him like for a king. So, thank you for coming today, and we will be continuing to do some stories in this really hard time of not being able to be together and see each other. So just know that we love you, Jesus loves you, and we're praying that you all be well. Goodbye.